Hi everyone, and welcome back to my virtual studio. I'm obviously not in my actual studio, I'm just at home. But today I wanted to talk to you about why it's so important to consume and enjoy art if you want to be an artist. And the same goes for like writing, so like whatever your medium is, whatever your creative form is, if you want to be successful in that craft, you have to indulge in other people's work, other experiences that feed into that. Otherwise, you're not creating very much of anything, really. It's really important to digest other people's work in order to progress and develop in our own art. I don't know a single artist that's successful that doesn't, in some way or another, interact with other artists, writers, creatives, anything in the same vein that they do their work in. And why is that? I mean, it's just a really simple thing of like, if you want to be a good writer, you have to write. And in order to improve how you write, you have to read. So you have to embrace other types of work within that industry in order to improve your own ability. And it's really that simple. Like, we don't learn just by practicing. Like, you can write the same thing over and over and over again. Doesn't mean that it's going to get any better. And the only way to get better is to read other forms of writing, look at other types of art, other art subjects. It's a really simple thing of like, that's how we learn. We learn by looking, by reading, and then by seeing how we feel about what we're looking at or what we're experiencing, and then putting it into our own craft. If anybody tells you that you don't have to read to be a good writer, you don't have to read poetry to be a good poet, you don't have to look at art to be a good artist, please do not take any advice from that person on anything to do with any type of professional art, I beg. It is terrible, terrible advice, and that is not how you are going to improve as an artist. Learning is essential to any craft, and that involves other people. I honestly can't tell you the amount of times that I've had this conversation with people that, you know, are really against reading or looking at art because I don't know, I think because there's this wild idea that art is just pure creation and it just comes out of you. It's not. That's not what art is. That's not what good literature is. It's all a skill set that you have to learn. You don't just pick up a paintbrush and create a masterpiece. That's not how art works. You have to learn and understand. You don't look at a Jackson Pollock and then decide to create a piece of splatter art and that's art, because that craft has already been created by somebody else. It's an art form that's already been used and developed by other people. You just kind of using the same mode to put paint down doesn't then mean that your art is on par with somebody else's if you don't understand how that art form came about. So yeah, you can copy art, but that doesn't make it art. It just makes it a copy of somebody else's art. And that goes for abstract art. Like, a lot of people paint in the style of Basquiat, but they don't know anything about his art or how he came to be the artist that he was. They just like the style and think, oh, I can do this. But actually, you're ripping off a history of art that you don't understand. There are so many reasons why it's so important to learn more about art if you want to be an artist. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit today because, like I said, I've had that conversation a lot. And something that I've been thinking about recently is how different forms of art and like creative styles and mediums have been feeding into my own practice. And I want to talk about it because I've seen like a really nice theme emerging in my own artwork that comes from digesting all of this incredible artwork around me. And I thought I would share it just to kind of give you an idea of how I'm doing it and why it's important to me, the things that I'm looking at, And then maybe you'll notice in yourself, like, the things that you're consuming, like the art, the media that you're consuming from your life, that then does kind of present itself in your own creative work as well. And it's really nice when you kind of like wonder for so long, like, what is my style? What are the themes that I like to explore? I have no idea what kind of artist I am. And then it kind of clicks after a little while, and you realize that the things that you've become obsessed with, you're obsessed with because you understand them and they speak to you, and also because you've unlocked something inside of you that's like, oh, that's the kind of artist that I'm here to be. Like, that's the kind of medium that I want to be working in, or that's the kind of subjects that I want to be exploring. And it can be like you've wanted to paint in a certain theme for so long, but just not really had any idea of how to come about to it, and then all of a sudden it just clicks. And for me, I wanted to share that today because I've had a really nice realization recently in my practice and kind of the way that I'm exploring content that I kind of display in different forms. And I'm going to talk about the few different projects where it's coming about. And I've realized quite nicely that I do even like the same themes I explore in paintings, I'm also exploring in my writing, and did also explore in my academic time when I was doing my master's degree in English literature. So it's quite nice to see how I've kind of come to this point in my career, and I'm really excited to kind of feel steady on 2 feet for a little while, because I feel as though for a good few years I've been kind of flailing while I've been learning, but I wouldn't have seen it up until recently as just like I'm in a learning period. I just saw it as flailing and like trying to figure out who I was and what I want to show people, and I've finally figured that out, which is a really nice moment. So I wanted to capture it because I feel like we don't really always get to see that, like, or hear that like from the mouth of someone that's doing it. It's usually something that's written about later, or like maybe, I guess, like with artists in our history, it's talked about in like their processes is explored and it's studied in literature and in art reviews and things like that. So I kind of wanted to like capture the moment for myself and for anybody else who cares on camera. So yeah, I'm going to talk you through some of my current obsessions. The first artist, so like living artist, I'm going to talk about 3 living artists because I just want to highlight the 3 at the moment that I am really enjoying learning about, reading about, and also like exploring like in real life. One of the artists that I'm going to talk about, I haven't seen any of their work in real life. I have only seen it online, but I hope that I do come across their work at some point. But yeah, there's 3 artists. One of them literally in the past 2 months. So yeah, the first artist that I want to mention as a particular influence of mine, but also just like general all-around obsession, is Anna Weyant, who is not that much older than me, actually. I think she's only a year or 2 older than me. So I find her journey to New York stardom really, really interesting. And I also find that story, her kind of life over the past few years, really hits like in the same way that certain character developments in novels that I like are really, really powerful. And if you don't know who Anna Weyant is, she is I almost said American artist, but she might be Canadian, who kind of plunged into the public eye, so like into like kind of social media, you know, clickbait news, because after signing with Gagosian, which is obviously one of the biggest gallery corporations in the world, after signing, she was in a very public relationship with Larry Gagosian, who is more than 50 years her senior, I believe, maybe 45 years her senior. So despite how much of an incredible artist she is, the level of skill that she has, what kind of took headlines for a lot of those first couple of years of her like very kind of public like entry into the Gagosian manifest, it was all about that relationship, the questions about it, questioning whether her skill got her that position on their roster or if it was her feminine wiles. She's a very beautiful lady, very kind of traditionally, you know, she's very blonde, she's very cute. She's talked about this in podcasts that I've listened to as well, where she's been interviewed and kind of like, it's, you know, it's talked about because it's been such a big part of her trajectory, this relationship that she had. Should it have? Probably not. Is the world that we live in now, you know? Women are questioned for everything, you know? And obviously, like, part of it, you know, that people talked about was the power difference and kind of him having that control over her career. Like, did that, you know, all that kind of shit that we're so used to hearing about when it comes to successful women and how they gain that success. But anyway, she did not just come out of nowhere. She was signed to another gallery in the past, and then she was picked up by Gagosian soon after she was with that other gallery. So after kind of showing her art and like people clocking, oh wow, okay, this is actually something to take note of, she had a very, very, very fast rise in the New York art sphere, which great, you know, like she's been really successful, and I think like she had some time in the spotlight and has now kind of like not hidden herself away, but you don't see her so much in the news or like at parties and things. She's also not in that relationship anymore that was so focused on in the media, so it probably is very nice to have that separation, and to be enjoyed as an artist without such focus on her personal life as well. But anyway, her art is absolutely fascinating. For me, what draws me to her as an artist is her colour palette and her subjects. I really enjoy her figurative work and her still life work. There's not really any painting of hers that I've seen that I've gone, I enjoy every single piece of hers that I have been lucky enough to see. I went to see the small show. They had a small showing of her work at the Gagosian on Davis Street in London, which is just, it's not a big gallery at all. It's basically a room on a street in Mayfair. And it's, you know, like it's like a glass front kind of space unit, and inside it had her paintings on the wall, and then there was like another room that just had like this one painting in it, and it was Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolves is what the show was called, and it was just like a small selection of I think there were 6 or 7 paintings in total just in this Gagosian unit on Davis Street. It is I should call it a gallery because it is the Davis Street Gallery, but it's just, you know, it's so small, it's just like a room. It's a showroom basically. But that was the first and only time that I saw her work in person, and I found it absolutely fascinating looking at the work in person. I was really glad, because I think sometimes you can enjoy artwork online but not know how you're going to kind of respond to it when you're actually in person. And that's another reason why it's so important to go out and see art if you want to be an artist, because the relationship that you have with visual media is different in different circumstances. You can see something online and like it and like think, oh my god, that's amazing, like that's such a lovely image. But the true impact of a painting cannot be felt online, in an online space. It just can't. The medium is very physical, whether it's oil paint, acrylic, you know, any kind of like medium like that, that's, you know, something that's made with your hands, you don't get the full impact of it for a screen. You just don't. And I do feel like it's an unfortunate reality of society that most people don't have access to art spaces to see art in person. And me, like, I'm very lucky. Like, I do not have a very high income. Like, I am not a full-time artist, but I do make it a point for myself to save money every few months and go to London and go and see some art in some of my favourite galleries and art spaces. That's really important for me to do. It keeps me engaged and it keeps me grounded in my belief that I am on this earth to be an artist, because when I go and see these paintings in person, or sculptures, but predominantly I love a 2D medium. It's just like, I'm just so drawn to it. When I see them in person, they have such a strong like impact on me. The reaction, like I do cry when I am in front of certain paintings. And do you know what, it's funny because it's not always paintings that I expect to get emotional in front of. The most recent one was a Jenny Saville painting at her show with the National Portrait Gallery. It's one of her self-portraits, and it just blew my mind. Couldn't even really tell you exactly what it is. It was probably a combination of the colour palette and the figure in the painting. But it was amazing, and it just did something to my brain. Like I could feel my heart going. Like, it really had a reaction, and that's what's important about seeing art in person. Like, that really, really strong, deep connection that you feel to a painting. I realised through kind of seeing Anna Weyant's work, the kind of work that I have been trying to figure out how to do. And I think sometimes if you just don't know something, you don't have access to something, you don't know how to create that. And I think that coming to the knowledge of Anna Weyant's work has unlocked something in my brain for the kind of work that I want to create. And if I hadn't come across her work, if she hadn't been so big in the news for that stupid gossipy relationship crap, I never would have realised that about myself as an artist. So I'm really grateful for the sharing of information that we have due to online spaces. It has its downfalls, but this is definitely one of the upsides. It's learning and finding and experiencing things that you never would have otherwise. I don't live in New York. I wouldn't have just come across one of her paintings. I don't live in London anymore, and I probably wouldn't have spent really any time in Mayfair if I did still live in London. So I wouldn't have just come across that show. So I'm really grateful for that. The way that I write is very similar to the way that I paint. I don't know how to really describe how it could possibly be similar, because the mediums are completely different. One's literature, one is painting, but the themes are there, the vibes there, the mood is there. So when I'm writing, I will listen to certain types of music and I will look at certain types of art, and it is often Anna Weyant's art that I kind of envision as like a cover piece for the story that I'm working on at the minute. Some people make mood boards for their novels. I just kind of think of, oh, okay, that painting would be the perfect cover artwork for my book. It encapsulates the colours of my novel perfectly. The style of character that is speaking, the way that the narrative runs, that's the connection that I feel in these paintings that I love so much. I'm gonna kind of talk about the next two artists as well. One of them, I think you could probably say, is very similar in style and subject, but still stands alone as a really incredible individual artist, and that is Meghann Stephenson. I'm glad that I've also been able to come across this artist. And again, I think it's the subjects, and it's the way that Stephenson uses the subjects and kind of molds them to suit the vision of the painting that she's creating. You can probably tell, like, from a few of the paintings that I've like kind of put on the screen or talked about, that I like a dark background with a very distinct subject, whether that's a still life or a figurative painting. I just really like the experience and the combination of those elements in a painting, a piece of visual artwork. And I think that's why Anna Weyant and Meghann Stephenson stand out to me so much. They both explore a lot of themes to do with femininity, girlhood and womanhood, but also kind of like different social experiences. I also find that a lot of the subjects in their paintings represent a world that I am not a part of. I grew up very, very working class, and a lot of the images and the kind of fantasies that come out of these paintings that you see are much kind of higher up on the social totem pole than I would have access to. But I still find that how they explore femininity and lifestyle and women's experiences and the way that they kind of cross those barriers resonate really, really nicely. You can enjoy a painting that represents a life that you have not had or probably never will have, and you can do that through the different representations that are in there that you can see similarities in. I know that a lot of people find artwork that explores kind of like high society or like that kind of socialite world to be, I don't know, like I feel like it gets quite a negative reception. I don't know either of these two people personally either. I don't know what kind of lives they've had, but I'm sure you can imagine there are certain expectations with coming up in as an artist in New York and being able to do it successfully and to a certain degree still in your 20s or early 30s, and that is not a world that I am a part of. So I find it quite interesting to see it, but also to see how these women's and girls' stories are represented in that way. The third artist that I want to touch on is an artist that I've only just kind of found, and it's because there is an exhibition on at Sunnybank Mills at the minute, which is where I have my art studio. New Light North have their summer exhibition on there at the moment, and one of the artists that is in the show is Jane Lewis, and her painting that really kind of struck me and I've been back to see again, and I have looked at on social media, on her website again and again and again, is Harpies. It's an incredible piece, and for me, I think it's similar things that strike me in Anna Weyant and Meghann Stephenson's work is the way that she uses paint, the way that they play with geometry and the dimensions of objects, the way that things can look both flat and three-dimensional at the same time, in very, very different ways. I love the way that Lewis has used birds, flowers, vines, and other objects like that in her work. And it reminds me a lot of how Anna Weyant uses flowers and looks at cartoon elements to offset the realistic representations of people and objects in her work. So it's really interesting. Like you can kind of see the theme of the art that is really speaking to me at the moment. and I really enjoy that I'm having this experience, and I'm seeing these artists, and I'm really being struck by them. And it was just that one painting of Jane Lewis's that was part of this New Light North summer exhibition, and yeah, I just absolutely fell in love with it. It's my favourite piece in the whole show. There are some incredible works in the show, but that is the one that I just kept circling the gallery and going back to it over and over again. And again, yeah, just like that's the one that I'm looking at online, and that's the one that I looked at and then went to the artist portfolio, looked through their whole gallery, and just like really like greedily consumed as much of the art as I could. And it was a really, really wonderful experience. So there's a few pieces there, like Harpies and Challenging Reality and Cryptology, which is a still life that I just absolutely adore of their oeuvre. So yeah, those are 3 artists that are really, really inspiring me at the minute, which making me feel fuller as an artist. I'm really digesting their work quite a lot, and I'm enjoying it while I'm painting my own pieces. And as well, that you have to remember that you can kind of engorge yourself on different art and different artists' galleries, but you have to remember that obviously if you are using influence from their work, that's not the same as being inspired by them. If you are ever confused about the difference, like it's super easy to, like loads of people talk about the difference between inspiration and I'm not sure what like the polite term is, but basically copying an artist or taking their style and trying to make it your own. I paint in my own very distinct style. You can admire these artists, and I admire these 3 in particular like a lot at the minute. But that doesn't mean that I'm trying to paint like them, or I'm using the same subjects as them. It's just that it's like reading a book. You know, you're digesting all that information and you're taking in all that unique storytelling, but you're not then gonna like copy passages from it and call it a new book. It's the same thing with art. Try not to copy or emulate too closely another person's art, because that's not influence or inspiration. It's just stealing basically. So yeah, just be careful. Obviously, I've talked about 3 artists that have really been inspiring me lately, but I also want to talk about some literature. I want to talk about like one particular author because when I have like looked at these 3 artists and like realised how influenced I am by them and how much I'm enjoying them, I've realised that there is a vein of similarity that kind of passes into what I'm reading at the minute as well, and also just the type of literature that I've always enjoyed studying, like academically, but also just like personally, like the books that I am kind of breaking down in my head and really thinking about. And the author that really, really stands out to me as being as influential as these 3 artists are in terms of like how they inspire me as an artist is Shirley Jackson. Shirley Jackson was a 20th century writer. She wrote novels, short stories. She's really famous for writing The Lottery, but also The Haunting of Hill House. Something that I've always really loved about Shirley Jackson's writing. So I studied her short stories when I was a postgraduate student, but I looked particularly at absence and the absent character, the lost girl, the kind of the way that women lose themselves mentally but are still very physically present in certain settings. So she looks a lot at like domestic life and the expectations of women. And I recently finished reading Hangs a Man, which is her first novel, and it was based on the true story of a girl that went missing from a college near where she lived. And there's these kind of themes of missing girls like throughout her work, and also women driven mad by domestic duty and domestic expectation. And I really find it fascinating but feel it very strongly as well. You know, it might be 2025, but the relationships between men and women in society are not really that much further moved on than they were 50, 60, 70 years ago. We still have a massive amount of misogyny in a very patriarchal society, and you still have women losing their shit in domestic worlds because of these expectations that still exist. And I find that because I paint a lot about kind of like looking at objects that symbolize domesticity or like sex, womanhood, the girlish experience, I find that Shirley Jackson's writing is as influential to me as Anna Weyant's artwork. And when I kind of like have realized that thread is there, it just did something in my head, and everything just fell really nicely into place, and it just felt really, really good to realize that there is actually a theme to what I love and the work that I'm producing that I didn't really see before, and I'm not sure why, but for some reason it was just when I was like reading a Shirley Jackson short story and then kind of like going on Instagram and looking up Anna Weyant's profile again, I was like, oh shit, this is a thing, like this is my theme, this is my inspiration, this is what I'm working on. And the novel that I'm writing at the minute is about the coming of age story of a girl in an age of like really toxic relationships between girls in the noughties and like the rise of internet culture, everything to do with sex, romance, and kind of expectations and like how girls fall through the cracks, basically. So the themes are all there in all the different mediums that I'm working in at the minute, and it feels really, really nice to realize that, because I thought for such a long time I was just like churning out these weird ideas and none of it really linked together. And now I'm like, oh yeah, that's the link. Missing girls. Great. Sorted. I am now a fully fledged artist. Just kidding. But yeah, so Shirley Jackson is a fantastic author. I actually recommend that if you're interested in similar themes, or you like paintings like the ones that I've shown you, read some Shirley Jackson. Read a short story online. Go grab Hangs a Man or The Haunting of Hill House or We Have Always Lived in the Castle. There's some like really incredible books there with some fantastic themes on girlhood, womanhood, domesticity, but also like super creepy horror stories. She makes these ghost stories from domesticity and society, and they're really so expertly crafted. Honestly, I recommend them. If you are ever looking for like some really good inspiration as an artist, if you as well, like I think if you're feeling really shit and really down about where you're going with it and you don't feel like you're moving anywhere with it, which is how I've felt a lot in the past couple of years, listen to podcasts, artist interviews. There are so many out there. Honestly, like you can just search your favorite artists in podcast apps and it'll come up with episodes from various different shows that are really worth listening to. I love Art Smack, which is Jerry Gagosian's podcast. Art Smack is a really fantastic podcast to listen to get like just like more of an understanding of how the art world, because I feel like there's multiple, how they work. It is very New York centered, but that's because that's where she came up, and that's where most of the people within her circle are concentrated. And I think that there is this kind of accepted knowledge that New York is the center of the art world. I'm not totally sold on it. It's very US focused, but again, it's really interesting to hear how things work over there from someone that's been through it as an artist and as a curator, a gallery owner. She's got a really incredible like career history, and I think she's a fantastic voice to listen to if you just need some like guidance or just to listen to someone talk about art that is so passionate about it that it really comes through. Because I feel like sometimes a lot of people can talk about art, but you just feel like they're doing it like for a job, which is not what I feel like she's doing. So I'd highly recommend that. Also, just like art vlogs on YouTube. One of my favorites is Brooke Cormier, because she's very open about her experience in content creation on top of actually doing fine art. She's self-taught as well. She didn't go to art school. Neither did I, so you should listen to my experience too. But yeah, Brooke Cormier is a really wonderful artist, and she's very transparent about different avenues that she makes money, and how she does it, and kind of like even like how she organizes herself. She's got some really gorgeous like content as well. Like, it's just nice to watch her vlogs and then listen to her talk. And journaling. If you have a low period with art or writing, or you know, any kind of medium, write a journal. It's very new for me. I tried it a lot when I was a teenager, but I feel like that kind of angsty shit is very different to like actual journaling. I'm writing about my process. I'm trying to write down my thoughts more, and more often than not, it just starts with me talking about my day, something that I've been up to, and then like how that is kind of like pushing me in certain creative directions, and just like the act of writing is pushing me into creating something. When I don't feel like writing, when I'm literally staring at a blank page, I get my journal out and I start writing. After a couple of pages of doing that, I have something to say. I have something to put down, and I'm finding that a really exciting part of my new process. And yes, so those are like all of the things and all of the people that are really feeding me right now. I consume as much art as I possibly can. I'm also an illustrator, and I follow a lot of illustration online, so I get that side of it too. I'm constantly surrounded by creative people. My studio is in like an open like space. I mean, we all have walls, but I'm surrounded by artists every day, and it is absolutely fantastic. But those are the things that personally I am able to do for myself to develop, to learn, to grow. And yes, if you aren't doing anything and you're not engaging with other people in the art form that you want to progress at, you are hurting yourself and your career as a creative. Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to read books or look at art, why do you want to be an artist? Like, what are you doing it for? Yeah. There's no right way to do it, but just do yourself some good and like feed yourself with art and culture. Sorry, I've been using like the food metaphor quite a lot, but it fits so well. Yeah, so thank you so much for sticking with me through this very in-depth breakdown of art, inspiring art, and how you can do that for yourself and feel wholly fantastic and ready to create yourself. If you ever get stuck, just look at some art. Just Google some art. Honestly, like, just go find some online. It doesn't have to cost you a single penny. Do it for yourself and enjoy what you do. If you have any other tips as well on how to like influence yourself and how to consume art, please do write them down below, because I'm always looking for new ways to develop and to create and to like influence and inspire myself. So yes, put your tips in the comment thingy. Thanks, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.